Hello everyone, and welcome to my first ever Pokemon Nuzlocke. I've watched a fair few in the past here on YouTube, and I find them incredibly interesting, but until now I've never actually attempted one. Growing up in the 90s, I remember being given Pokemon Red and Blue for Christmas, and I replayed them over and over again countless times. And so, what better gen to start with? For those who don't know, the rules of a Nuzlocke are often linked to the playstyle of the player. I want to keep this as simple as possible. I'll be sticking to the usual rules of no overleveling above a boss trainer's ace, no using healing items in battle, I'll be catching only the first encounter on every route, species clause will also be in play, I'll be giving nicknames to every Pokemon in order to create a stronger bond with that Pokemon, I'll be playing on set mode, meaning I will not have the option to switch after KOs, and fainting means death. Into the box they go forever. Because I'm super imaginative, I name myself Tom and name my rival Gary. We begin our journey in Pallet Town, and we head into the tall grass only to be stopped by Professor Oak, who catches a Pikachu. Just as we're about to select the Eevee sat on his desk at his lab, Gary barges us out the way, leaving me with the Pikachu Oak just caught. I name him Sparky as a throwback to Richie's Pikachu from the anime, and am challenged to a battle by Gary. I will be using the rule of death allowed before receiving Pokeballs, however it doesn't matter in this case because 4th Thundershocks later, Gary's Eevee falls. We visit the Pokemart in Viridian City and receive Oak's parcel before returning to him to drop it off, and we receive the Pokédex. A quick visit back to Viridian City allows us to spend all of our money on Pokeballs, before finally finding our Route 1 encounter, a level 4 Pidgey. We catch him with the first ball and name him Birdie. I promise these nicknames will continue to be absolutely awful going forward. We then head straight to Route 22, and while I was hoping for the 20% Mankey encounter, we find a Nidoran male named King. Not totally ideal for the first gym, but a solid pickup nonetheless. While in the area, I decided to do some training and then faced off against Gary for the second time in the run. Thundershock paralyses Spearow before a second gets the KO, and after a couple of tail whips, Sparky's in a bit of trouble, so I switch out to Birdie and finish Eevee off with a crit gust attack. We then head north of Viridian and found a Rattata that we call Ratty, before advancing into Viridian Forest to encounter a Metapod we call Butter. After some training south of Pewter Gym, thankfully still technically Route 2, it's time to face Brock. Thankfully neither of his Pokemon know a rock move yet, so Butter is in no real danger of barring a critical hit. 2 confusions leave Geodude in the red before the third gets the KO, and the crit confusion leaves Onix below half. Brock used Bide, didn't really matter. 1 badge down, 7 to go. On Route 3 we encountered a Sandshrew, which at this point I'm confident will be a huge help after Gym 2. We catch it with ease and call it Slash, before finding a Zubat called Teeth in Mount Moon. Mount Moon's pretty straightforward, barring having to return to the Poké Center outside to heal, and we pick up the Dome Fossil because I'm a non-believer and are confronted by Team Rocket. Ekans barely survives a crit confusion and proceeds to use Wrap, however it soon falls to another confusion. Meowth's up next and it's a bit tougher. Butter uses Poison Powder to deal some chip damage before I switch out to Slash, who is unable to deal with Meowth, before being at risk to death. So I switch out again to Birdie and find that a quick attack is still not enough. However, Meowth finally falls to poison damage, leaving Coughing. Birdie is left with far less HP than I would like, and so Teeth comes out to confuse its enemy before leech lifing its way to victory. Off blast Team Rocket, and the path to Cerulean is clear. Route 4 sees us pick up a Spearow called Pex, and after a lot of training, it's time to take on Nugget Bridge. The battle against Gary goes as expected, with Spearow falling to Sparky after 2 Thundershocks. Sandshrew comes in, and I decide to switch to Butter, who tanks a scratch well and hits back with a hard confusion. Butter then avoids 2 potential misses from Sand Attack's accuracy drops, before a third confusion picks up another KO. Gary sends out his Rattata, next who is no real match for my newly evolved Nidoking, whose double kick picks up a win. Next up is Eevee, who also falls after a double kick and a horn attack. Win number 3 against our rival. Our Route 24 encounter was only ever going to be one Pokemon. Blaze the Charmander joins the squad. After dealing with all the trainers, we arrive at Bill's and we help him reverse his weird experiment, making sure to get Pikachu's thoughts before and after this transformation. And so now we arrive at Cerulean Gym, slightly worried about Misty. Sparky begins by missing a Thundershock, allowing Misty to use a 3x defense, but 2nd and 3rd get the KO. Next up is Starmie, who I usually struggled with as a kid. A Thunder Wave leaves it paralysed, and it eats the Thunder Shock before leaving Sparky with way less HP than I would have wanted. Out comes Butter, who to this point has been fantastic, and Butter's confusion does barely anything other than confuse the Starfish, who retaliates with a Harden. We switch in Ratty just as Starmie hits itself in confusion before hitting a Hyper Fang for decent damage. Starmie retaliates with Water Gun, while another Hyper Fang leaves Starmie with a tiny amount of HP. The following Bubble Beam from Starmie leaves Ratty with just 10 HP before a quick attack earns us the second gym badge. Close call. On Route 5 we encounter an Abra. My Pokeball obviously fails and off it teleports, leading to our first failed capture of the run. I decide to make myself feel a bit better by returning to Cerulean City to receive a free Bulbasaur called Brute Root after the Venusaur in the first movie. Yes, I am that old, get over it. A Jigglypuff called Puffball from Route 6 and a Diglett called Diggy from Diglett Cave also join the team. We head on to the SS Anne and head straight for the rival battle. The majority of the battle is a clean sweep for King until Eevee, at which point King misses a double kick. I decide not to risk any shenanigans by switching to Diggy, who proceeds to growl Eevee down a lot before the return of the King. A final double kick downs Eevee, and after receiving cut from the captain, we proceed into Vermilion Gym to face Surge and his Raichu. Despite being 4 levels lower, I expect Diggy to be able to survive. Never mind. First step for the run goes to Diggy the Diglett. Out comes Ratty, who I've taught Dig to, and he hits an Oko to win badge number 3. Outside, we also collect Shell Shock the Squirtle. After returning to Diglett Cave, we arrive just outside Pewter City to collect the HM for Flash, before heading north to the Pewter City Museum, entering via the back door to collect the old Amber. We make our way back through the cave with a little difficulty, simply because of me speeding the game up. We head back to Cerulean to go east towards Rock Tunnel. We catch Magnet the Magnemite on Route 10 before teaching it Flash. We progress through Rock Tunnel, capturing a Geodude before heading down to Lavender Town, Pokemon Tower. I decide this is as good a time as any to battle our rival again, and Sparky makes quick work of Fearow, Shelder and Vulpix, with King coming out to face Sandshrew. Sparky lands Thunderbolt, and King finishes the battle with a double kick. On Route 7, outside of Celadon, we encounter a level 19 Abra, who joins the team, called Psy. A couple of evolutions and team changes later, we find ourselves in Celadon Game Corner, and find a suspicious looking guy stood by the poster. We dispatch him with ease, before pressing the button, revealing Team Rocket's hideout. After completing movement pad maze, we exit the elevator to meet Jesse and James for a second time. Sai still doesn't know any psychic moves, and so I switch to King to eat a Smog that deals 1 HP. A Horn attack leaves Coffin low before a second falls just shy of the KO. A third does the job. Meowth comes out next and doesn't cause me half the problems he did before, falling to a quick double kick. A couple of Horn attacks later, and Ekans is gone too. Next up comes Giovanni, and with me not using any resources for the first run, I'm not 100% sure whether to expect a ground type or a rock type move from Onyx. I risk the rock type move with Birdie coming in on a guard spec. Onyx thankfully misses a rock throw, and we miss a sand attack. Expecting another rock throw, I switch out to King on a weak rage attack. King proceeds to Bubble Beam, both the Onyx and the Rhyhorn. Persian comes out and Giovanni uses a guard spec once again, but King's Bubble Beam lowers the cat's speed. Another couple of Bubble Beams sees Team Rocket's boss defeated, and after clearing an item like my bag, the Silph Scope is ours. Back to Pokemon Tower we go, and with the Silph Scope in hand, we encounter a Wild Ghastly. A fly from Birdie leaves it with a bit less HP than I thought it would have had, but a second Pokeball catches our new team member, Ghoul. After quickly paying our respects to Gary's Raticate, Rip Bozo, we battle through Erica's gym mates before taking on the Grass-type leader. Her Tangela falls to Blaze's surprisingly weak Embers, finally, before Weeping Bell leaves him with just 2 HP. Another very close call. Out comes Birdie to defeat the plant with a fly. Gloom also falls after another 2 flies, and we secure badge number 4. Another trip to Pokemon Tower to release Cubone's mother, before another battle with Team Rocket. Not long before this point, I suddenly remembered about the Psychic TM, and Sai's Psychic Oko's Meowth, Arbok, and Weezing. We help Mr. Fuji, and we receive the Pokeflute for our troubles, and wake up the sleeping Snorlax. Following a much longer battle than is shown on screen, due to the low catch rate and the amount of times Snorlax use rest, the Great Ball finally catches Sleepy. Some training to the east of Fuchsia City sees Blaze evolve to Charizard. We proceed into the Safari Zone. Of course, the dream would be a Dratini, but there is an issue. A 20% encounter rate compared to 70% encounter rate for Magikarp, even with a Super Rod. I cast out my rod, and of course, we get the fish. I call him Fish and proceed through the Safari Zone to collect the Surf HM and the Gold Teeth. A return to the east of Fuchsia allows us to evolve Shell Shock into Blastoise, and Birdie evolves to Pidgeot. We head on to Route 19 and we catch a tentacle called Tenty before heading into Silphco. We clear out the building and meet Gary once again. His Sandslash falls to Shell Shock Surf, and Ninetales barely survives on a tiny bit of HP, while Bubble finishes it off. Cloyster comes in next, and we switch to Sparky on a withdraw. Thankfully, not long after, Sparky is able to hit a second Thunderbolt, and out comes Kadabra. We bring in Ratty on a Psybeam, and we KO it with a powerful Hyper Fang. Jolteon hits a double kick, which Ratty survives, before finishing the battle off with a Dig Attack. We collect the free Lapras, called Ship, and head on to the next level to be ambushed by Team Rocket again. Weezing survives a Surf and retaliates with a Sludge, while being downed. Arbok comes in, and is one shot with another Surf, while Meowth comes out once again. Another Surf from Shell Shock defeats the cat, and off they go. Up next is Giovanni. Ratty starts against Nidorino, and Okos with a critical hit Dig. Persian then falls to a critical hit Hyper Fang. Yeah, not so fun is it, Giovanni? Ratty at this point is absolutely killing it. Up next is Rhyhorn, and a Dig does huge damage through a Guard Spec, while Water Gun finishes it off. Finally, out comes Nidoqueen, who almost falls to a Dig Attack, before a double kick leaves Ratty below half. Another Dig picks up the win, and we receive our free Master Ball. A return to Fuchsia City follows, and a battle for badge number 5. Blaze makes short work of the 3 Venonats, with Venomoth tanking a hit well. Psychic did way too much, and so out comes Kadabra to tank a weak Leech Life. A Psychic takes out Koga's ATB, and the Soul Badge is ours. After travelling to Cinnabar, we enter Pokemon Mansion and catch Grim the Grimer. Against one of the scientists, Ratty manages to avoid a self-destructing Electrode. Yikes. We drop off the old Amber, and we return to collect Terra the Aerodactyl. It's back to Saffron now, defeating the Fighting Dojo to receive a free Hitmonchan called Jackie, and then we visit Sabrina at gym number 6. Abra comes out first, and is taken out by a single quick attack from Ratty. Ratty then knocks out Kadabra with a Hyper Fang, and Alakazam survives a second. Ratty then finishes the battle, and wins us badge number 6 with a quick attack. A quick flight to Cinnabar finds us in front of Blaine, and after getting all of the questions correct, yeah, I know, impressive. He goes on about Burn Hill, but, you know, no healing items. So Ratty comes out against Ninetales and avoids a flamethrower with a Dig. He avoids a Tail Whip and picks up the KO with a quick attack. Rapidash follows and tries a Stomp, which Ratty avoids with a Dig, which, again, Okos. Another Dig on Arcanine crits and barely leaves Arcanine with any HP before a Flamethrower crits and takes out Ratty. Absolutely devastating. Ratty's been a real MVP this run. So, out comes Sparky to hit a quick attack and win us badge number 7. We head back to Viridian to challenge the final gym leader, and we're shocked to find out that it is none other than Giovanni. The Rocket Boss is all that stands between us and the Elite Four. He leads with Dugtrio, who hits King with a hard Earthquake, or a Bubble Beam leaves Dugtrio with less than half. We switch out to Shell Shock, who thankfully avoids the cheese of Fissure, before taking the KO with a Bubble. Out next comes Persian, who falls to 2 Surfs after a critical hit slash leaves Shell Shock with just over half HP. Nidoqueen should be much easier, but a Surf leaves her with a small amount of HP too, before hitting Shell Shock with a strong Thunder, which Shell Shock survives with 4 HP. Another Surf knocks out the Queen before Nidoking comes out. Not wanting to lose Shell Shock this close to the Elite Four, I switch in Birdie, expecting a potential ground move, only for Nidoking to miss a Thunder. Fortune's on our side right now. I don't want to risk Birdie either, so out comes Brute Root to use Leech Seed and follows it up with a crit Razor Leaf. Another Leer leaves me slightly worried, but a second crit Razor Leaf from Brute Root knocks up the second rate King, leaving Giovanni with just his Rhydon, who falls to a single Razor Leaf. We've done it. 8 badges, and the Elite Four, here we come. But first, Gary's awaiting us back on Route 22, and it's our final duel ahead of the Elite Four gauntlet. He leads with Sandslash, and having forgot about this battle, I lead with Nidoking. So a quick switch to Shell Shock on the potential ground attack, but Sandslash only uses Fury Swipes. Shell Shock KOs with Surf, which sees Execute coming. Shell Shock takes another KO with Ice Beam. Ninetales is next, and Surf takes KO number 3. I switch on Cloyster to Sparky, and after a withdrawal, Sparky's Thunderbolt is just enough to still get the Oko. Kadabra next, and another Thunderbolt doesn't do nearly enough. A hard Psychic leaves Sparky with just 31 HP, so I switch out to Birdie on the second one. Birdie flies on a Reflect and gets the hit before Kadabra uses Recover. A Wing attack is enough to stop the stall. Out comes Jolteon last, and so I switch to King on an Agility. For some reason, Jolteon uses a second, only to fall to a super effective Earthquake. Let's try this again. Elite Four, here we come. A quick jaunt through Victory Road and we finally reach the Indigo Plateau. I head on in heal in preparation, and decide on our final team. This is it. I decide on Shell Shock, Blastoise, Sparky the Pikachu, King the Nidoking, Blaze the Charizard, Birdie the Pidgeot, and Brute Root the Venusaur, all levelled to 65 to match the champion's ace. And so, we head into the first room. Our first challenge of the Elite Four is the Ice-type trainer Lorelei, who leads with Dugong. Sparky uses Thunderbolt and falls just shy of the Oko, before being hit by a strong Aurora Beam. Sparky then hits a second Thunderbolt and takes the kill. Out comes Cloyster next, and Sparky follows that up with another Thunderbolt, which takes the kill. In comes Slowbro, who suffers the same fate and falls to a single Thunderbolt. Lorelei switches into Jinx now, and we swap out to Blaze on a super effective Ice Punch. Blaze hits back with a Flamethrower, and there's another Pokemon down. Lapras comes in, and I know for a fact that Blaze doesn't have a chance, so out comes Shell Shock. Lapras uses Confuse Ray, and Shell Shock hits back with a Bite, avoiding confusion, with Lapras using another Confuse Ray. For the next couple of turns, Lapras just repeats itself using Confuse Ray, and Shell Shock tries to break through confusion with Bites. Lapras finally hits a Body Slam, which paralyses. Following Body Slam doesn't do enough, and Shell Shock's next Bite gets the crit, takes the KO, and gives us the win. Next up, it's on to Bruno, the mostly fighting type member. He leads with his obviously fighting type Onix, who falls to a 4-time super effective Surf. And so out comes Hitmonchan. I'm unsure whether this Hitmonchan knows the elemental punches or not, but I decided it's best to risk a Hydro Pump and manage to take the KO. Next up is Hitmonlee, who doesn't get a chance to throw a single kick my way, thanks to a single critical hit Surf. Next up is another fighting type Onix who falls in exactly the same way as the first. Lastly is Machamp, who manages to survive a single Surf and hits back with a weak Karate Chop, before a Bite finishes the battle. On to Agatha next. The Poison type trainer uses Gengar first, and I lead with King, before a super effective Earthquake Oko's the Ghost. Next up is Golbat, who manages to survive a super effective Thunderbolt. Agatha switches out on her next turn to Haunter, taking a Thunderbolt, who replies to King's Thunderbolt with a Hypnosis. King wakes up instantly, but Lick paralyzes, and Haunter uses Confuse Ray. King breaks through both paralysis and confusion, and hits Haunter with an Earthquake, taking the kill. Out comes Golbat once again, but Agatha instantly switches to Arbok as King is fully paralysed. And so begins the most frustrating part of the Elite Four. Arbok whittles away with Wrap, and so I switch out to Birdie. As Wrap ends, Birdie hits a very hard fly and is then screeched before a wing attack barely fails to finish off the snake. Another few wraps and a super potion proceeds to fly, which finally takes it out. Golbat finally suffers the same fate. Gengar tries to use Dream Eater, but Birdie is already up in the sky and takes out the ghost for another KO. It's now time for Lance. Lance leads with Gyarados, so I start with Sparky, who manages to pick up the Oko with a 4-time super effective Thunderbolt. In comes Dragonair. Thunderbolt doesn't do much, but after avoiding a slam, I stay in and repeat. Another Thunderbolt leaves Dragonair with less than half. And then disaster. Dragonair uses Hyper Beam. A crit kills our starter. Death number 3, and arguably the toughest you can possibly have to endure in a Pokemon Nuzlocke. I can't quite believe it, but I decide to make the best of the situation. Out comes Blastoise to finish the Dragonair with an Ice Beam. A second Dragonair comes out, and filled with rage, Shellshock takes another KO. Aerodactyl comes in and hits a Swift, but Shellshock takes another KO, this time with Surf, leaving just Dragonite. Shellshock's 4 times effective Ice Beam knocks it out and defeats the Dragon Master. Elite Four done. We are the champion. Or are we? Gary stands between this team and greatness. I'm not sure how he made it here before us, but we haven't lost to him yet. He leads with Sand Slash, so we start with Shell Shock and take the Oko with Surf. Next is Alakazam, whose Psybeam does less than a quarter, only for him to fall to a crit Hydro Pump. Advantage us. Exeggutor comes in, and I risk it with an Ice Beam. The tree uses Leech Seed and survives a second Ice Beam, before, for some reason, using another Leech Seed. The third Ice Beam takes the KO, and so in comes Cloyster next, and without Sparky, I decide to try a Bite, which doesn't do much, but neither does Cloyster's Spike Cannon. In comes Brute Root on an Aurora Beam, and survives the crit. Mega Drain crits, and takes the KO, giving Brute Root plenty of HP back in the process. Ninetales next, so I switch to Blaze on a quick attack. Fly helps avoid Tail Whip before dealing half of Ninetales' health. A second barely misses out on the kill, and a Strength finishes the job. In comes Jolteon, and at this point, I decide it's best to risk it. Thunder Wave paralyzes Charizard, but a Flamethrower leaves Jolteon with less than half. Thunder connects, and leaves Blaze with just 5 HP. Once again, he breaks through paralysis as he uses another Flamethrower, leaving Jolteon deep in the red. I decide to spare Blaze, and bring in King on a full restore. Jolteon uses Pin Missile, which does pitiful damage before an Earthquake wins us the battle, and wins me my first ever Nuzlocke attempt. The sad losses sustained before this point, from losing Diglett so early, through Ratty and Sparky, could potentially have been avoided with a little more forward planning. The last two especially played important roles throughout the run, being almost ever presence in our party. But as King, Shellshock, Blaze, Birdie, Brute Root and I celebrate our success, they all remain important parts of my Pokemon journey. They're all champions. Thanks for watching. This is the end. Or is it?